hey, it's just a lockdown until we flatten the curve. It's just a few non-essential businesses you won't be able to transact with. It's just a few non-essential activities you won't be allowed to do. Like going to church. It's just a mask to protect grandma. It's just a vaccine so you can keep your job. It's just a few racist statues and symbols of hate that need to come down. Oh yeah. And the guys that wrote the Constitution, rich, white privilege, slave owners. We need a new government. This is exactly what's at stake in the 2020 election. Make no mistake about it. And again, I will say this to you never Trumpers. You guys that you think that when you defecate, your turd comes out like marble and it doesn't smell. And that when you speak, gold nuggets of wisdom just continually drip from your lips, and the rest of us should be in such awe that we've even been granted an audience with you to hear you pontificate about your ideals of conservatism, yet yours is a record of continual capitulation, taking money from the enemy, going to the same cocktail parties, being polite because that's the, quote, presidential, political, professional way to act, while at the very end you press for a former billionaire's tax returns, yet give no explanation as to how someone like a Nancy Pelosi, who has spent 50 years as a public servant on a public servant's salary, became a multimillionaire. Not the least bit interested in seeing her tax returns. See, this is what's at stake during this election cycle. And the fact that we have really the president and a few voices, just a few on Capitol Hill, occasionally Ted Cruz, guys like Jim Jordan, that gives some pushback to the counterculture, that gives some pushback to this out-of-control libloon tardism, which is absolutely permeating our culture right now. Kudos to the president for basically telling the governor of Minnesota exactly where the bear went with the buckwheat. You allow the cities of St. Paul and Minneapolis to be overrun with rioters and looters, and your own ridiculous mayor even puts a mask on and gets on his knees in front of them and apologizes for his white privilege, etc., etc., etc. The city council of Minneapolis unanimously votes to defund the police. And then you have the audacity to hit up the federal government, the American taxpayer, to pay to rebuild a state that you allowed under your feckless, compromising, appeasement-oriented Democrat philosophy of governance. Let the mobs run wild. Don't make any real arrests. Don't make any of the charges actually stick. See your cities turned into squatter and into burning cinders, and then expect the American taxpayer from the Midwest and in places that have nothing to do with Minneapolis, but they're going to pay for it. They're going to pay for it. Margaret Thatcher once said, socialism works until you run out of other people's pockets or other people's money. And that's where we're at right now. It's the president oftentimes is standing alone. And when he says something like, hey, you teachers, there is no scientific data whatsoever that talks about the coronavirus even remotely being dangerous for children. Get back to school, or we're not going to fund the schools. When he says that, it's the Mitt Romneys, it's the rhinos, it's the so-called Republicans who are really Democrats dressed in Republican drag who come out and chide the president. He hasn't got the authority to say that. You feckless wimps, you eunuchs, you non-binary gendered freaks that call yourselves Republicans. You commit to nothing. Oh, you've got your carefully crafted buzzwords and catchphrases that have been poll tested among the political base so that you know what to say during a primary, but you don't govern that way. It's not your core conviction. This is exactly why you got beat by Donald Trump. He has transformed the party. That's what you're really hot about. And he's the only one really forcefully pushing back on the nonsense. Case in point, the Washington Redskins are going to rename their team. Now, again, I'm not a Native American. Is seeing the name Redskin offensive? Well, obviously it's not offensive to me. And I'm a little bit at a loss here because ESPN and these other sports channels, they're celebrating the fact that they're going to drop the name Redskins, and ESPN just the other night had several former Redskin players on, assuming, especially because they pick ones of color, that they would all agree with this decision. Yeah, we got to get rid of that racist name, and they all said the same thing. The name didn't mean that to us. What the name meant to us was champion. It was a matter of pride to be able to put that helmet on with that logo on the side. And, they basically said, we don't care what they rename the team. They will always be the Redskins to us. We earned those wins. We earned our place in the history books. We earned our championship rings with the Redskin logo. Boom. And that just meant ESPN went into absolute meltdown freakout mode. But then again, as has been raised by people like Rush Limbaugh and even now Charles Barkley, as the NBA grapples with, they're going to let, the players put anything they want now on their back in support of Black Lives Matter. Charles Barkley said, when people go to a game, they go to escape all that. They go to root for their team, to cheer on their favorite player. They go to escape the bad news. They go to escape all of the stuff happening out there in the world. And now all you're going to do is just keep sticking it in their face by putting it on the back of their jerseys and painting it on the floor of the gym. And again, ESPN and the sports world went nuts that Barkley said that. But he's absolutely 100% right. In fact, did you see that the NBA, apparently you can go to the NBA stores now and have anything you want put on the back of your favorite team jersey. And somebody put on something not friendly to China. China got ticked, put pressure on the NBA, and the NBA is now instructed we will not, and they have now a list of things that you can't put on the jersey. And of course, we're worried about offending the Chi-Coms. But you can have cop killer put on the back of your shirt. That's not on the list to be banned and not printed. You can run right out now to your local NBA merchandise store, and you can pick out whether it's the Dallas Mavericks, the New York Knicks, whatever the basketball team of your choice is, and you can have cop killer screened on the back. This is where we are, thanks to the cancel culture. And the fact that the Democrats feed this, they feed them, they give them fodder, they give them fuel, they've given them, if you will, sanctuary within the confines of the Democratic Party. And if Joe Biden gets into office, this is exactly the type of lunacy that is going to govern the nation. You are frightened by what you see on the television of what's happening in places like New York City and Atlanta and in Minneapolis and at the squatters' home of Seattle. Understand that will be the entirety, including rural and suburb America, under the next Democratic administration. Now, that's not hyperbole. That's fact. That's where we're heading. Well, Pastor, don't you think that it is wrong to have, labels and images that degrade one race? God created one race, the human race. So I'm going to say it again. All lives matter. But over this issue of the Redskins, well, what's next? Are the Florida Seminoles going to have to rename their team? Is that famous war chop that you hear at an Atlanta Braves game, is that over with now? And I hate that thing. The real reason I hate it is it's so stinking effective and intimidating. 25,000 fans all going, oh. I mean, you're up to bat. It's a crucial point of the game. And I mean, that is an actual intimidation factor. Now, they want the name of the Texas Rangers changed. Wait, the Texas Rangers? Yes, because apparently, according to a group of liberals, that name is as offensive as the KKK, because after all, that's really kind of what the Texas Rangers were. They were, to Native Americans, the KKK. It was their job to round them up, shoot them, and get them out of the territory. This belongs to white people now. So I guess the Lone Ranger who traveled with a Native American, I guess he's now racist. See, it's never going to be enough, and that's what you've got to understand. And if a Joe Biden becomes president, all of this so-called fringe radical behavior is not going to simply be fringe and radical. It will become the norm. And if I were a black American, I would be offended right now. Seriously offended. Because let me tell some of you black individuals that have tuned our way just out of curiosity to see what these right-wingers are up to. If I were black, I would be offended, and I'll tell you why. Because what you're seeing is, this is the typical white privilege liberal response to your request for equality under the law. And you should have equality under the law. How do liberals show you that they're going to make things equal for you? They're going to rename pancake syrup. They're going to reboot old TV shows, only now they're going to have an all-black cast. Did you see they're doing that to the Wonder Years? I don't know if you've ever seen the show. I like it. It's about kids growing up in the suburbs in the late 60s, 1970s. Okay. Fairly innocuous, other than they did deal with, the issues of the time, the Vietnam War, the sexual revolution, etc. But now they're going to redo the Wonder Years, and they're going to do it with a black cast. And again, I don't have any problem whatsoever with seeing a storyline from the black point of view. I don't. I have no problem with products and private businesses making decisions that they feel are in the best interest of them as a business. But when this thing is all being brought about through bullying and intimidation and fear, and at the end of the day, this was really about a cry for justice. And if I were a black American, I would start feeling very cheated right now that the people who initially ran up to you and threw their arms around you and even knelt before you and so-called apologized for their white privilege, what they're really doing is patting you on the head saying, hey, we renamed Aunt Jemima pancake syrup. We're giving you a black cast for the Wonder Years. Joe Biden gets in office. We're going to make sure that there's public housing in rural America now. But you better believe there won't be any public housing where Nancy Pelosi lives. You better believe that where these elites and their private security forces, and they've taken away your police, you better believe full well they will have everything that's been stripped from you. I talked to a woman today, a member of my church. She's on a very stringent fixed income. She has a husband with a disability. She has an autistic son. And she came into my office today crying. She got her stimulus check. And what she decided to do was save it. And she put it in her savings account. And she had never had a savings account before. And she was so proud of herself that she was going to save it and maybe figure out a way to help turn that into a little bit more money. And because she receives government help, Social Security, disability. She's been given notice she has to either spend it or lose it. See, the whole welfare system is not designed to give people a help up so that they can overcome poverty. It's designed to keep them in poverty forever. They're not teaching them any money principles, how they can take some money and invest it and turn it into more money and eventually not need the welfare system. It is turning people into a permanent underclass that can be ruled over by the oligarch. That's it, period. So I want to turn my attention now to the Republicans, those who are also running for office this year aside from the president. And I think that there are 4 things that we need to hold Republican candidates accountable to if they want our vote and they want our money. Number 1, defend the American ideal. Where have the Republicans been when cities were being looted and burned and statues were being toppled and even Washington, D.C. itself was under siege and memorials were being desecrated and statues were being toppled? Where were the Republicans? Where were they coming out and saying, we're going to have law and order, we're not going to have this? When the president said he wanted to send in the National Guard to put an end to this in cities around America, it was Republicans and even so-called patriotic generals telling the president, you can't do that. You can't do that. Why, Marco Rubio, one-time presidential candidate and an alleged Republican, what has he had to say during all of this upheaval and crisis in our nation? Oh, just stop your whining and put on the damn mask. What? What? That's his answer. You know, we need the Republicans that want our vote and want our support to agree that, number 1, they will defend the American ideal, which means they will defend our history. They will defend our heritage. They will defend our greatness. They will make sure that colleges and institutions that simply teach a hatred for America will not get tax dollars. They will not get subsidies. They need to make sure that public school curriculum teaches American history and not a revisionist why America is the great evil of the world. You know, sometimes you have to defend what you might disagree with. And there are certain aspects of our history that I am certainly not proud of. But I'll give you a little history lesson. I've been known to do that once in a while in these videos. Did you know that it was black people in Africa selling other black people into slavery? Did you know the first slave owner in the United States was black? I'll bet that doesn't get taught during Black History Month. And I'm not saying that to degrade Black History Month. I am saying we have got to teach all of history in its totality, in its context, and sometimes understanding that our founding fathers were flawed, they were not perfect, but what they gave us in that Constitution was a near perfect ideal for what our government should be. We have not always lived up to it, but because of that piece of paper, that Constitution, we have the framework, we have the legal recourse to make sure we can finally live up to it. So number 1, they have to commit to defending the American ideal. Number 2, they need to promote American exceptionalism. Promote American exceptionalism. You know, I went to school when studying somebody like Henry Ford was cool. Man, this guy, you know, and cars, and Alexander Graham Bell and the telephone, and Thomas Edison and the light bulb and the phonograph, and we were taught, you know, what a great force for good America was. Look what's happening to us now. Look at the snowflakes and the rioters on the streets and the politicians literally bending and kneeling before them, and we have turned our nation into a bunch of sniveling, whimpering cowards over a virus. You can't come in my store. You're not wearing a mask. I stood in a restaurant today and I had the mask pulled all the way down, and I could tell it was driving the manager nuts, and he wanted to say something. And I was waiting for him to say something because I was ready to engage him, but he didn't. So I didn't. So I sat down. While my wife and I were in that restaurant, my kids were driving by. They saw us. They whipped their car around and came in. And being youthful, they weren't wearing their masks. We're all over there laughing and talking, and other customers are coming in and looking at us. We're getting the evil eye. So I purposely said loud enough so that they could all hear, including the manager, how stupid is this that people are walking into a restaurant with a mask on so that they can order food and take the mask off to eat it? What's the point of even putting it on to begin with? This is not how America has ever responded to a quote-unquote crisis. To cower, to whimper, to wait for permission to exercise our rights, to line up, to put on some mask and do as you're told. We're giving into a new normal which is completely and totally abnormal. If I see one more sign or advertisement by different businesses, and it's not just fast food anymore or pizza delivery, everybody's promising to deliver to your house with, quote, contactless delivery. You have any idea how stupid, moronic, and I'm going to say it, retarded that sounds? Contactless delivery? What? Somebody just blinked like Genie on I Dream of Genie, or twitched their nose like Bewitched and the product poof just appeared? No. Some human being with their hands touched that sandwich, wrapped it in the paper, put it in the bag. Oh, but it's now safe because they put the bag in a plastic tub. They hand you the tub, and you're supposed to reach in with your fingers, just pull the bag out of the tub. It's contactless. We're all safe. You have any idea how ridiculously stupid we look? I go in restaurants where they've hung plastic shower curtains between booths. I said to one waitress, and it's not her fault, she's just doing what she's been told to do. I said, what, does the virus just magically die when it hits plastic shower curtains? She kind of looked at me like, I don't know, I didn't think about that. You cash out in a store now, they got that little piece of plexiglass right there between you and the cashier. Because the coronavirus, if it's truly as deadly as they say, that this is gas and it's getting out and you've got to wear a mask so it doesn't get out and infect anyone. So that little piece of plexiglass right here, the gas doesn't go around it? Do you understand how the powers that be who have perpetuated this stuff on us have got to be absolutely laughing and looking at themselves? Can you believe how stupid they become and how easy and quick it was for us to do this? Americans in our history have not been cowering wimps. We have conquered, we have beaten, we have defeated, we have overcome by being strong, not by cowering. Number 2, they must promote American exceptionalism. Number 3, they must commit to America first. Yes, and I didn't stutter, America first. America first on the economy. Well, we're a global... Shut up. We take care of our economy first. We take care of our people first. And not with another stimulus check, not with another stealing and transfer of wealth and paying people, hush money to just take it. Oh, it's another stimulus check. No, but a roaring, booming economy, jobs here, manufacturing here. All of our drugs ought to be made here. That means all of our pharmaceuticals, it ought to all be done here. No foreign power should be able to blackmail the United States by denying us access to medicine. Now, who thought that was a good idea? Bill Clinton, George Bush. Rhinos and dinos. Unbelievable. This is what career politicians give you. This is what Joe Biden will give you. No, it's America first on the economy. American first on our military missions. No more regime change. No more just intervention hogwash. We need to go back to what the framers of our government, of our country gave us. To have a strong military to defend the homeland, defend our interests around the world if they get attacked. Other than that, butt out of it, stay out of it. We're not going to do it anymore. A commit to America first on our borders and our culture. There's a little phrase on a coin in your pocket, e pluribus unum. And it means out of many, one. It means anybody who wants to come here legally, properly, is welcome here. And once you're here, you're one of us. I've got no problem with that. I have no problem with the idea of Hispanic Americans and Italian Americans and German Americans. I'm a German American. But once you're here, be American. Speak the language. Adapt to the American culture. And I'm not saying we can't flavor it up a little bit with the best of other cultures, but what we're seeing happen right now, this transformational change because of Black Lives Matter, which is a Marxist, communist group to its core. Just go to their website. They don't want e pluribus unum, out of many one, out of many, many. Continue. Keep the chaos. Keep the discord. Just emphasize the diversity. Let no one ever be equal. Some of you black people need to really look into what is the Black Lives Matter movement. You're being lied to. You're being suckered. So yes, GOP, you want my vote, you want my money? Commit to America first. Then finally, no more lockdowns. No more forced vaccines. No more tracking. In other words, allegiance to American liberty. Allegiance to American liberty. And not just in a campaign slogan, we want to see that you have taken decisive action to do that. We cannot lock down this country again. Look at what the governor of California is doing. There needs to be legislation, and I've always been one. I do support states' rights. But here's where we're going, people. States have the right to leave the Union. Abraham Lincoln technically circumvented the Constitution by going after the South. Technically, the southern states were within their right to secede. So, if these governors want to act like their little own would-be dictators and emperors of their own little lands, go for it. But you'll do it independent of being in the United States. No more lockdowns. We have killed our economy. I had said this the other day. Actually, I had created a public service campaign about it, directed it first at the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine. When you shut down everything for the kids, you've taken away the outside eyes. So we didn't know if they're being abused or what's happening to them. You're also making them feel like they're all purveyors of a plague. I listened to a report today that sex trafficking of children is up 600% because as the kids are home all day unattended because mom and dad have to work, they're online. And sexual predators are having a field day right now. In fact, on the dark web, they are referring to what's happening with the lockdowns as, quote, are you ready for this? This ought to send a chill through you. It's harvest time. Referring to children. It's harvest time. No lockdowns. No forced vaccine. Well, you're not going to be able to get on this plane, get a job, or shop here if you don't take the COVID vaccine. Republicans, you better commit to making sure that you are not going to go along with that. You're not going to recommend that. You will not stand for that. And no tracking. Even that little thing they just put on our cell phones now. Well, we just want it to ding if you come in contact with somebody with COVID. You understand that we're watching a cashless society unfold before our eyes? Certain places won't take your cash because it's dirty. It carries a virus. And now there's a national shortage of coin because they weren't minting any coins during the pandemic and the quarantine. They're moving us to a traceable, cashless society. What are you spending your money on? That's not approved. That's not an approved business. They've introduced into our vocabulary essential and non-essential. The governor of California has shut down all churches again. Churches, you need to gather this Sunday. I don't care if you got to do it in the middle of a field, but you need to gather. Do not let this happen. We need politicians that will fight for us and declare an allegiance to American liberty. That's it for today's rant. Yeah, I had a lot to say today. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel. Give us a thumbs up. Share this video with other people. Help us spread the word and get this channel out there. Smack the bell and click the word all to get notification of my next rant.